My name is Frank Lavinia, and this is a little show. There we go. There's my thing. Let me start over, just in case, because sometimes I've noticed that the first like 6 to 10 seconds tends to get clipped as different streaming platforms um, go out. So let me start this out. My name is Frank Lavinia, and today is Tuesday, March 1st, and this is a little something I like to call High Impact Tuesday. All right. So, obviously, I think the elephant in the room is kind of the events in the Ukraine that are going on now. Obviously, this is going to have a high impact on, honestly, I think everybody in the world. But I think right now, the people of Ukraine are really, really suffering. Listen to a story on the BBC World Service on my satellite radio in the car, and it was they were interviewing. Basically parents of sick children who were getting chemo, who no longer can get chemo in Ukraine. They have to travel to Poland or actually the people they were interviewing were headed straight to Poland or a neighboring country. So I we've all seen a lot of the video, but your heart has to go out to people who are sick, infirmed, and require assistance and medical assistance constantly just to stay alive. They are going to be the most vulnerable in a situation like this. Now, I don't want to make this into a geopolitical show because that's not what this is. There are plenty of other places on the internet where that goes, but there are something I want to point out. For those that don't know, when I watch kind of the footage, and I've actually stopped watching some of it, is because it brings back some pretty clear memories of 9/11. For those who don't know, I was at the World Trade Center on 9/11. I actually lived 5 blocks from the Trade Center, and it is can't be overstated how psychologically disruptive um, having your workplace and your place of residence suddenly turned into a war zone. One of the things I had heard, and I think it was something Tony Robbins has said based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where basically you have this hierarchy of needs, including physical safety. And when he said that, he said, you have to make sure the ground's not, going to fall out from beneath you or the sky's not going to fall. And I thought, well, that's kind of ridiculous. And then after 9/11, I get it. My thought goes out to the folks that are going through that. It is very jarring, to say the least, to live through something like that. And I really want to applaud the current leadership of Ukraine, who are choosing to stay and fight, literally in the trenches, asking for ammunition rather than a ride. I think that sets a very high bar for leaders in the West. That I think um, that should be looked at. Um, if I think of American presidents that I would see doing something like that, I have to go back to JFK before I would say that's probably who would do it. Truman, I think, would do it. FDR would do it. Um, Teddy Roosevelt totally would. Um, but it's sad that I have to go back 5, 6 decades to find someone in the West that I think would do that. That I think should be a wake up call for all of us, regardless of where you stand on this conflict. If we need to raise the bar of our leadership, and that's all I'm going to say on that. The other thing I want to say that it's an interesting impact is the front on this. We're used to, at least in the States and in North America, that the front is kind of far away. This one, if this conflict gets further out of hand, that's not going to be the case. There's already been the hacker group Anonymous, or at least someone claiming to speak for them, because they are a very decentralized organization. So um, take it for what it is. They have decided to declare kind of war on Ukraine. I mean, not on, I mean on the Russians government, and I think that's interesting because cyber warfare is one of those few domains that um, for lack of a better term, it can be very asymmetric. You can have a very small country or a group of non-state entities um, basically engage in this type of warfare. And it's interesting how that is going to play out. Obviously, they have the Russian government has pretty rumored to have a pretty capable cyber warfare um, capability, and as I would hope that the West does as well. But it's interesting you're seeing kind of private tiers, if you will, if you want to go back to the kind of days of the old um, seafaring era, you could have that type of thing evolving. And I mentioned that not in support or condemnation, trying to be neutral here. Um, but what I do find is very interesting is that cyberspace is only as far away as your phone is, right? Or your computer, right? The frontier could be anything. All sorts of chaos could come about if this gets out of hand. You don't have to go further than kind of what happened with the Colonial Pipeline, where there was a ransomware attack. Now, one of the big problems is with cyber warfare is that you have something called plausible deniability. Um, Folks, individuals, state actors can claim I didn't have anything to do with that because it's plausible. Maybe they didn't because the tracks in cyberspace are not immediately clear. And that opens up some all sorts of strategic conflicts, obviously ethics as well. This is a new domain, folks. Who knows where this is going to go? So I encourage everyone to, if you haven't patched your machines, I would do so immediately. Patch your routers. Just enable multi-factor authentication. Is that a guarantee? No, because who knows what sorts of things have already been infected with malware. There's some interesting stories. There's a really good YouTube channel called Satonic, Seytonic, and they kind of cover this from that point of view. It's interesting how that is playing out. It's totally. I mean, a few months ago, this all was all theoretical, right? Like, and I remember in the '90s, Wired magazine, way back when Wired was really relevant, um, there was this whole talking about they called it I war or information war, infrastructure war, and it was this kind of this thought experiment from a think tank, and they kind of documented it about kind of what would the next generation of warfare look like, and that was 25 years ago. It's interesting to see some of those things that were in that article pan out: cyber warfare, infrastructure attacks, that sort of thing. Obviously, one of the big concerns is misinformation. And even there's definitely, I think, even the mainstream media can be caught up in this cycle as well. Because everybody wants to get that headline. Everybody, social media is, I think, going to be a real Achilles heel, as well as a way of getting the message out. Um, in in this kind of conflict or future conflicts realistically. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We live in the information age. Now information can be used as a weapon, and that has always been done in a certain extent throughout human history and warfare. But I think at the speed of which this can happen now, I think is novel. That's kind of the new aspect of this. So I don't know what to say. My thoughts and prayers go out to the folks in Ukraine. I've seen footage that's been very disturbing. The shelling of a civilian areas. It's just that's just terrible. The response of the Ukrainian people has been amazing, and the leadership response has been equally amazing. And I think that should set a bar for how who should be leading the West. That's that's what I would say. Um, the only other thing I would say is it's going. We can hope and pray that this will kind of settle and that they'll work together to get a peace. But if you look at kind of the long haul of history, civilization is always at war, unfortunately, and one of the it just might I don't know. Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but, I wish everyone, to stay safe. Um, there's someone I know who posted. I don't want to say her name, but she said the best thing people can do realistically is find reputable charities to donate to, and also be careful of what you share on social media because the Russian government does have very well organized misinformation campaigns. They do have very well kind of psychological warfare departments. So what you're posting, I don't know, is it true? I don't know. Like, so you have to be very careful because the information age, I think, is safe to say, has been weaponized. And this is not something that, I mean, in retrospect, it seems kind of obvious, but kind of when the internet was new and fresh, it was seen as kind of this fresh thing. You can't stop information. You can't do this. You're right. You can't really stop information. It's very hard to do that. It's hard to stop an idea. But what is easy to do, unfortunately, is poison ideas, right? If you can't stop the flood, you can poison the flood. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So always double check before your blood pressure gets too up. Before you get upset, I would get upset. But again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the folks in Ukraine. Um, and I say that in a very sincere way. I don't want to be like a cringy celebrity. In there, you're seeing a lot of that now. I think that the intention is well ordered, but the intention is good, but I think the execution um, can be a little cringy, for lack of a better term. Um, but folks don't turn into this show for geopolitical thoughts. Trying to keep this away from that. But I do think that this is going to be interesting to see how this unfolds in terms of how information has been weaponized, and how the front is basically as near as close to your nearest IoT device, your phone, your computer, everything. This is going to be a bit different than wars I think we've seen in the past in terms of its ability to reach beyond the physical realm. And I think that I want to believe, I want to pray that this is going to end quickly and we can start acting like civilized people again. But the longer arc of human history does not point in that predictive model does not point in that direction, sadly. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But my thoughts and prayers go out there. And if there's anything I can do personally, if anyone is in Ukraine or has contacts in Ukraine, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I'm not really sure what I can do, to be honest. Um, but I will do my best to not quickly share things, not rush to snap judgments, because I think that there's also a misinformation campaign being waged in all directions. Because when one side does something, the other side will do that too. All is fair in love and war, as they say. And but it was just heartbreaking to hear the stories of these parents who already have sick kids. Now they have to worry about surviving, and just not surviving like basic kind of quote unquote day to day stuff, but I mean, actually worried about getting killed or worried about getting their kids to another country to get medical treatment that is essentially life saving or life preserving. And that really touched my heart. That was just sad beyond words. And I don't know what I can say or do that would add to this. I just hope that cooler heads prevail. And we'll all look back at this as a teachable moment as opposed to a teachable moment. Um, but that's all I've got to say. Hopefully, your Tuesday is okay, and I hope that um, the world can come together and kind of stop this. But I do think that from after, it's interesting when how that article I read like 20 years ago or more still sticks with my head when I'm seeing kind of some of the things that are happening, the attacks on infrastructure, the attacks on websites. When that article was written, I think it was called I War or something like that. It's from like 96, 97. Well, if you took down a website at that point in time in history, not a big deal, right? Because not critical infrastructure was not really on the web, wasn't online. Now it is. And I really think that cybersecurity going forward, it always was a good safe bet for a career. But I think going forward, I think you're going to start seeing governments do this as a part of civil defense, right? Um, Mandate some kind of better cybersecurity or policy, because how many routers out there are there with the default password still? So with that, I got to end the stream. Hope you have a good day in spite of it all. And let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks.